G'day everyone, and for some reason I'm Australian. My name's Kev, and this is episode 5 of the virtual reality barrel. I guess it's normally VRB. I've never even described it as that.
No, virtual reality barrel.
And also I'm not Australian anymore.
Yeah, that's good.
Hello, and I'm joined today by Tim.
I like the fact that you haven't podcasted in so long. You've forgotten your nationality.
Yeah, and apparently what our podcast name is, which makes a lot. The virtual reality barrel.
Virtually reality barrel is incredibly formal, but I kind of like it as well.
Yeah. For those with video privileges, you'll notice that my office is boiling tonight and I can't have my fan on, so my glasses are steaming up, which just looks like I've got an interesting thing going on my face.
Nice.
So forgive
Sexy,
me.
steamy Kev.
That's what they call me in the VR chat rooms. I don't go to VR chat rooms. I'm not 12.
Good.
Right, so Tim, it's been a while since we recorded last. Just to let everyone know, we recorded an episode that I then went on to edit, forgot how hard editing was, took a bajillion years, and then we both kind of forgot it existed, especially when I discovered the joys of Baldur's Gate 3, which I sank about 200 hours into. So yeah, that's disappeared. It might get released as a bonus episode at some point. I don't know.
Maybe.
But
if everyone does something really nasty and we decide to get revenge on the world, we'll release it. Other than that, it may be lost to the depths of time. But hey,
I feel like the world's got enough problems right now. Right, it doesn't need our secret episode, which, if memory serves, was just me mostly talking about how much I like Pistol Whip, and I can't remember much else.
I mean, that sounds fine. Like, by the looks of it, Pistol Whip is a game that I need to possibly invest in, even though I don't really like my rhythm-based games, but that one looks like
it's not rhythm-based. That's the thing. Yeah, I think we had this conversation on the podcast that will never see the light of day. But it's not really rhythm-based. It's just there's a music track and you shoot stuff, and sometimes you coincidentally manage to hit a rhythm. But mostly it's about just movement and being John Wick. That's me doing shooting motions for those with an audio podcast. Yeah, so I really like that game. They just released a free Halloween update as well with 3 new tracks to play along to / levels, which has been good. Yes. So we are going to talk about what we've been playing, I think, up front.
Yep.
So obviously me, Pistol Whip.
Yep.
What have you been playing, Tim, not including the game we've both been playing?
Okay, well, we'll come back to that in a second. There have been a lot of updates recently. As you said, a few Halloween updates. Been some good updates for some Halloween-related games as well. But
Mini Golf got a Halloween map, right?
Mini Golf got a Halloween course. I haven't actually played that yet, even though one of my friends has been bugging me to go play that with him at some point. I will do so at some point and report back. But from what I've seen of other people talking about that is apparently a very good course that's good fun and got some kind of gruesome elements to it and Halloween horror-themed kind of things. But yeah, it looks like a good fun course. It's supposed to be one of the better ones as well, basically.
I can't remember if we've spoken about this on the last show that we released, but I love that game. Walkabout Mini Golf.
Yes.
It is phenomenal.
Well, since we last recorded, and maybe even... Well, anyway, since we last recorded, I can definitely put it that way, you and I have actually played a game of mini golf online together.
Yep.
And yeah, that was good fun. Good cross-play game. I've also played a bit more of that with some other people and a bit of After the Fall as well, which is I'm quite liking in multiplayer and works quite well in cross-play as well. And that's been good fun, actually. That's something that I'm going to encourage you to join us with at some point as well. Because After the Fall's been good co-op zombie blasting fun as well, basically. So, yeah, that was good. But
that's cool.
Yeah, I did mention that there's been some updates. Some I haven't got to yet. One that I did get to and play in VR the other day was the latest update, and not a Halloween-themed one, this one, but the latest update for Gran Turismo 7. It came out, it's kind of winter-themed. There is like 7 new cars, some of which are better than others, but there's a Tesla in there, which I really couldn't care about if you paid me to buy it. But there's a nice Porsche, there's a few other good things. The main addition, though, is the addition of a wintry level. I believe it's the first track from Canada. I could be wrong about that. It's definitely the first snowy track, though, and it's kind of snow and ice, and definitely winter themed. I was a bit confused why this didn't come, because this was a part of a really big update. They're actually referring to it as Gran Turismo 7 SPEC 2. And I'm surprised that the update with the ice and the snow wasn't something that they'd implemented on other tracks other than the one they've released. I'll be surprised if that isn't something they add going forward. But it was nice. It feels like a kind of off-road rally race that handles a bit differently because of the conditions. It also looks really nice in the VR headset as well. And there's a couple of other like big updates that are just updates to the general game that aren't really, because it was, in previous updates we've had like VR editions and stuff, but this was just something that added stuff to the game. But I do think it's some worthy additions. The one thing I haven't really messed around yet is there's a improved opponent AI in the Sophie 2.0 update, basically. And that, I think, is unique to PlayStation 5, presumably because it takes some computing power. But yeah, like that's something where apparently the like opponents that you're on the track will feel a bit more lifelike and a bit more kind of, not necessarily aggressive, but a bit more... they will kind of overtake each other a bit more and do a few more things that you would expect if you were racing against other human opponents rather than racing on the Gran Turismo 7 things, which often feels like it's just, 19 other cars going around a track at the rate they go round and you just have to overtake them. And if you're fast enough, then you will do so.
Yeah.
So it feels a bit more like an integral race. I haven't really messed around with that too much. And I wouldn't necessarily be technically adverse enough with, the ins and outs of how that works to necessarily spot exactly how that works. But yeah, there's a few, as I said, there's a few other cars and things that were added. But yeah, I was going to say the main addition in this one is actually something they call challenge mode or something, or weekly challenges, I think it is. But it's, monthly challenges. But yeah, there's a selection of events that you have to do within that monthly period, and they give you a double bonus for doing so, or they give you like an extra bonus of cash for completing those events. So you get most of them you have to be just third in the event to qualify for the extra bonus, but you get whatever you get for completing the event. And usually I think it's another 100 grand on top of that per event. And they're generally like really good fun events that pair a really good car with a really interesting event for that car, basically. So there was a kind of Japanese particular course with a particular Japanese set of cars as well, basically. And yeah, like as I said, they're just really fun pairings of events with different cars. That was really enjoyable. The other thing, which feels like a really weird addition, but they've added another new opening movie, which I don't understand the need for that, basically. That seems like a weird waste of everyone's time.
It kind of felt like a slightly new game.
Yeah, and I guess if they're going for the SPEC 2 thing, having a different intro movie kind of makes it feel different for everyone going in and lets them know that that's the case. Gives it a little stamp of approval, doesn't it? Yeah. But yeah, I kind of liked the one they had before, but fine. It doesn't make too much difference to me. But yeah, interesting that they've made that sort of addition. As I said, there were 7 new cars as well and a few other things. But yeah, if like the main thing is the course, and that feels good. And the main event that they've got with that is like a truck event type thing. And then there's a series of different versions of the track. And then there's the like different course challenge and other things that usually come with that. And then you can do all the different arcade races and stuff like that as well. So yeah, like that was interesting. A good addition to the game. Gave me another excuse to jump in and play some more Gran Turismo in VR, which I highly recommend is very enjoyable and the best way to enjoy that game, I think, basically. I actually showed it off recently to John Brady, and he's played the game a lot because he's really into it. But he hadn't played it in VR before, so I think he enjoyed the experience of doing that as well, basically.
Doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
No,
I'd be shocked if it held a candle to Euro Truck Simulator 2 in VR, which, as we all know, is the greatest VR racing game that's been made so far.
Speaking of holding candles to things, one that I'll jump into quickly, only because I've played a little bit of it, but worth mentioning. I don't know if you played the original PC game, but Seventh Guest was a game that I absolutely loved the original of. Was the first game I played on PC CD-ROM. Like, a friend of mine had it and played that. And this is a new version that's been created for VR. I know it's definitely out on PSVR 2 because that's where I've been playing it, but I think it's out on Quest as well, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it's on
there. Yeah. But yeah, this is something where, they've remade the game for a new age and also added a few different things in it. So one of the main additions is, as you're wandering around the environment, you've got a lantern which kind of either brings everything back to life. It can reveal like hidden messages and things in the environment, but mainly like most of the environment's all kind of cobwebbed up and there's obviously been left to go decrepit for quite some time. But when you shine your lantern on it, it's like it's all new again, basically. And seeing that in the headset, that's a really good effect. It looks really, really, really good. One of the other main things is whenever you shine your light on one of the paintings in the mansion, it changes it to a more macabre version of the painting that you've got there, basically. So it might just be pulling a funny face, or there might be someone that's in the picture that's actually like hanging from a noose in the new picture. And like there's all sorts of different versions of different paintings going on throughout the environment. And that's quite cool. It's generally, as it was in its original vein, a kind of puzzle adventure game where you're solving a series of puzzles to open more rooms to do more puzzles. I don't actually remember how they broke it up in previous games. I just remember it being real easy to kind of hit a wall and some of the being really obtuse. Like I remember there was one where there was a maze, I think in the garden, and the solution to the maze was on a rug in the floor of one of the rooms in the house, basically, the study or something, basically. And I don't think there's anything quite obscure as that, basically.
It was very much a game of its time in that regard. It was in the same realm as like, what was it called? Myst and Riven, a sequel to Myst. Games like that, and like the original Monkey Island, which was just like, maybe Monkey Island's not a brilliant example, but there are other adventure games where you had to fluke your way to success sometimes. It was or you had to ring up the old phone lines, like
very expensive phone line.
I'd like to pay you £75 a minute to give me the answer to this stupid bloody thing. Me
through the third puzzle I've got stuck on today. I do think it's been modernized in that sense as well. Like it's not quite as obtuse as it was. There's also a really good hint system for if you do get stuck. That's basically you can find coins throughout the environment and you can trade in those coins to get a good hint on what's going on. I haven't actually used the hints too much because the puzzles I've so far have been fairly obvious, or at least ones that I've been able to solve by just fiddling around with them. And so, I haven't really got too used to the tip system. Also, the original was famous for having its kind of rotoscoped ghosts in there, basically. And this does the thing where it kind of makes it look like an old school rotoscoping type thing. I'm not sure they use the same techniques. They can obviously get around it a bit easier these days. But it's something where they've made it look like it was rotoscoped, at least, basically, which, I think it comes off really well. From everything I've seen so far, and I haven't got too far into the game, but it seems like it does a good job of not quite entirely reinventing the original, but modernizing it and making it more palatable, and also just making it a game that works really well in VR and looks really good, especially with that lantern that you're shining around the environment.
The use of FMV for the people standing around in the room looks fantastic.
Yeah, that's done really well.
I'm not in a rush to get this game. I'm going to do what I'm doing a lot at the moment, which is wait and see if it comes out on the Quest Plus subscription. But it looks pretty cool. It's not, as I said, it's not something I'm going to jump headfirst into. But it's good to hear from you that it's doing all right. I've been pretty negative about VR over the last few years because there's just been an awful lot of trash to mediocre coming out with nothing stand out. And it's good at the moment that there's some good quality stuff coming out on a semi-regular cadence.
Yeah, October, particularly for PSVR 2, because obviously that's the perspective that I'm coming at it from, but was a real mixed bag. There was a real up and down.
There always will be, right?
Good things. Like Ghostbusters came out on both that and Quest, and seems like it was made for children, not really for like old school fans like ourselves.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, but that seems like a weird decision to me, considering children shouldn't really be playing VR. So that seems weird. And yeah, a number of games kind of fell flat on their face. I actually wrote an article on the site this month called Does Sony Care About PSVR 2? Because they're not doing a particularly good job of putting their best foot forward and making the case that they do at the moment.
I mean, they're letting people release games on it at a pretty severe cadence. So that's good. But I don't see any first-party support for it at all.
No, that seems really weird. But also, there seems to be a real... Like, the first-party game that did come out was one of the biggest disappointments. Firewall Ultra, is that right? Yeah, I think that's the name.
Yes, I think that's right, yeah.
That kind of had a real rocky launch. Had some really weird decisions made, but also had some weird technical errors in terms of connecting and getting people into a game and it taking ages to do. They have corrected and patched a few of those things, but it seems really weird considering that is a near first-party title and has had the biggest problems. But then there's a selection of other games like Hellsweeper VR was one I was really looking forward to that we spoke about on previous shows. And that came out it seems like the developers just haven't used foveated rendering on it whatsoever, basically. And that seems to be a growing trend in a few games. Project Wingman came out and fell flat. One game that came out and got some seemingly deserved stick on launch, again, for the lack of foveated rendering, or at least it being very blurry in comparison to what people thought it was a game called Green Hell VR. Now, I was actually, and I'm going to say up front, I was given a review code for this, but I was given the review code after they brought out the patch that apparently brought this more in line to what everyone thought, more in line with the PC VR launch, possibly. Looked a hell of a lot better. And so, yeah, not quite sure exactly what the technical limitations were with getting this launched. But I also didn't play it previous to the patch, so I don't know exactly what those problems manifest themselves as. But having played through it myself and played, must be 8 hours or more now, and yeah, that's a game I really enjoy. It's harsh and it will kill me, and it will kill me numerous times. But it's, anyone doesn't know, it's a kind of survival, not horror game, but just a survival game based in the jungle. And you've got to kind of craft everything and...
It's a tree puncher.
Well, actually, no, you need to make an axe. You won't be punching no trees here. You need to make an axe to fell the tree.
How'd you get your wood to start with?
Well, you can get...
Do you not have to punch a tree?
No, you can get wood that's just lying on the ground, and then that'll be large enough. You need a larger
tree puncher.
You need a larger stick, and then you can combine it with a rock. And then to make that even better, you can wrap a rope around it to kind of make it a sort of slightly more toughened version of that, basically. And yeah, it's got an inventory system we've seen in a number of games now. It's got like the same one as kind of Saints and Sinners, where you got a backpack on your back and you can pull it off your back and slot things into different slots in your backpack. And then you've got like a couple of pouches either side where you can store weapons. And then you can store your bow as well on your backpack, which you can quick reach just by grabbing behind your shoulder, which is quite a useful function. Works really well. Like, there's some really nice touches. Like, you kind of have to learn your way around the environment and forage for all of your food. It goes really in depth, though. Not only do you need to be like eating food and purified water to make sure that you're not picking up bugs and stuff in the water and stuff, but you also, the food that you eat has to be of different food groups as well. So you have to like make sure you're having enough nutrients and make sure you're having enough like fatty oils and all this type of stuff as well. It might be.
Eat your food groups.
But it's definitely something where they really do dig into things. But then also, because you're trialing and erroring and kind of making your way around, and to start with at least, you can't make fires, and you need fire to properly prepare some of the food, and you need fire to purify your water and stuff like that as well. So initially, before you can even do that, you're often eating meat, and sometimes like you're left to like the last meat you have in the bag. I'm like, okay, rattlesnake meat probably isn't going to go well, but oh well, I really need it. I'm starving. I'm going to eat this. I eat it, and if you eat too much of something that is a bit poisonous or just too much of like slightly bad things, it can really affect your mental health, which you need to be worrying about as well. And if your mental health like breaks, then you have a psychotic break basically, and things start whispering to you. So you have this voice whispering in the background, and you're going to like aim a bow and arrow, and it goes, "You're gonna miss."
It's like the old whispering in your head.
Yeah, and just kind of just putting little doubts in your head, and just making it out like, oh, you're going to die now, and oh, you should definitely eat that, when it's not necessarily a good thing to eat, and all this type of stuff. So yeah, like there's a lot of effects of that. When you actually like break psychotically, there's some surprises in there as well, which I won't spoil for people. But I literally shit my pants at one stage, Kev. Like in playing the game, I literally yelled, "Oh Jesus Christ!" when something attacked me. And yeah, look, there's some nice surprises in the game in general. And it is, it's an unforgiving survival game, but there's something that I find more involving about that when doing it in VR. Like, I don't think I'd play and enjoy a survival game on the flat screen as easily as I would where I feel like I am in the jungle, it's raining on me, I'm hunting for these fish because I need them. Like, there's something where it feels, because it has that immediacy to it and the kind of immersion, it feels like it's an experience you're going through rather than just something you're observing.
Yeah, I fully understand what you mean. In a lot of VR games that I've played, it can take something that is really, and this really goes for a lot of VR games, something that would be really, really mediocre or somewhat monotonous and dull on a standard game, and then like you put it in VR, and because you're the one doing all of the actions, like Job Simulator, it's a perfect example of this, right? Would you play Job Simulator on Steam or the PlayStation? It bore the life out of you. But because you're actually doing all the actions, it feels so much better. And that's the strength of VR in many ways.
Yep.
Doesn't always go right.
Nope.
As I've said before, like Half-Life Alyx, if that were a game, like people were, oh no, you've got to release it on Steam as a 2D thing. I'm like, no. That game would be awful if it wasn't part of a VR experience. It's well, not awful, but it wouldn't be interesting.
Yes, it's not the same experience basically at all. So yeah.
But we should move on to a game that we have both been playing.
Yes.
I have not had a conversation with you about this yet.
Oh no.
So this is Vampire the Masquerade Justice. I think I've mentioned before that I am a big fan of White Wolf historically and the sort of World of Darkness setting. There have been, and I can count this on 3 fingers, 3 games in the history of the 30, 40 games that have been released in the setting that are considered good. They are historically all awful, and it is my never-ending bugbear that the World of Darkness setting is just constantly made an absolute fool out of in the video game space. So yeah, of the 3 good games, there was a visual novel. There was a ARPG on the PlayStation 2 and original Xbox, and there was Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, which of course everyone is familiar with. So this is Vampire the Masquerade Justice. You play as a character called Justice. That is the name. You can play male or female. And your sire, who is the person who turned you, has, I forget if killed or injured or captured.
I think
I can't
killed
remember.
Or disappeared. I'm not sure. They're definitely
disappeared, possibly
not around, probably dead, I think.
And you have gone to Venice to find out what the heck has happened. You are a member of, and I forget the clan name, but it's what used to be the Assamite clan, which is a clan of like stealthy assassins. the children of Hakim. And I could get into a lot of lore here on who Hakim is, and I'm not going to, but there's a lot here. And this is actually one of my things that I'm going to move on to about this game, is that it's fine. It does not delve into the lore as much as I would prefer it did.
Right.
In the same way that like your Bloodlines did, for example. It's pretty much just, this could be any, this doesn't need to be licensed at all from what I've seen so far. You're a vampire, you suck people's blood to stay alive, you have some special abilities, you sneak, you solve puzzles. That seems to be the game so far.
Me being less familiar with the World of Darkness, is it? The whole overall universe? Yeah. Me being less familiar with that, probably don't need it to go as much into the lore as you do. But it does seem to give it a bedding and a grounding that feels more of a fleshed out universe that I'm just kind of walking into here, basically.
It definitely helps for people in your boat that there are verbs and nouns being used that will come off as like, you won't necessarily know what they mean immediately, but at least gives it an establishment of setting, like a baseline for you to work from. But yeah, for me as someone who knows the setting, it's just, that's been a little bit unfortunate. But I also am only 3 or 4 levels in, and it is a level by level game. Yeah. So I can't speak for the whole game, obviously. I've still got a long way to go. How far in are you?
I'm probably a similar amount. I've just gone down to the sewers and I'm searching for Pietro's cell.
Okay, yeah. So I'm a little bit further ahead than you then.
Okay.
So I think it's probably worth saying this is developed by Fast Travel Games, whose previous game in the World of Darkness was Wraith, the Oblivion Afterlife, which I think I've talked to you about before, which is pretty good. Very much this is built, I'm almost entirely certain, same engine, same tools, same sort of assets. So it all looks very similar, which is not in a AAA manner at all.
I kind of like the styling, though. No, it's got an artistic style to it, which does
there's some artistic style to it. I wish it looked better. This is another one of my bugbears about the World of Darkness. I love the setting so much, and they never ever put the money behind it to make it look good.
I mean,
and a lot of these games suffer as a result of it.
It's definitely not a AAA game, but I wonder, because you're playing on Quest 2, no, at the moment?
3, no.
Oh, 3. Okay. You've actually been playing it on Quest 3, have you?
Yeah, I had a quick go before we started recording tonight.
Okay. So I'm wondering if it looks better in the 3 than it did in 2.
The graphics aren't better, but the display is much better and clearer. So,
because it looks all right in PSVR 2, as far as I've seen. As I said, it's
all right.
Slightly stylized.
One thing, but yeah, I mean, I'd need to see myself, but none of the videos I've seen suggest that I'm getting a bad end of the stick here. Yeah, let me get I guess the bad things out of the way first. So I quite liked Wraith. It was, again, a very B game, but it was fun and scary. And they got the theme right. They got the setting, like the kind of ambience was there. And they've kind of brought that across. I do think that the ambience of this game is pretty good. What I do not like is how they've sold this game as a sort of, if you like Dishonored, and games like it, you're going to love this because of this blink ability primarily, right?
Yeah.
A blink ability which is, as far as I can tell, borderline useless, except for stealth kills and getting to very specific areas. There are entire areas of the map. You're standing in the middle of a city square, right? And you've got buildings up around you, ledges everywhere. And only the ledges they've deemed okay to get up on are the ones that you can teleport to.
Inconsistent in the distance and the height that you can travel to, depending on what it wants you to do.
There's just certain surfaces you cannot stand on with the teleport, even though it's well within the reach of the ability.
Yeah.
I'm on a bit right now where there's a brick wall in front of me that's about 3 feet high, and I'm like, can I get on top of that wall? Nope. Because that's just the edge of the level. And that's not a terrible thing. Like, look, ultimately, if you haven't got the budget to build this stuff out and play test it all, then, you know, you got to put in your restrictions.
Yeah.
And the players will just have to understand that. I don't think it's a bad thing. The places you need to get to are available to you. It's just unfortunate that when it got sold to me as Dishonored, and the best thing about Dishonored is if there's a ledge that you can fit on, you can damn well get on it.
Yeah.
And they don't care if it breaks the game. It's like play the game the way you want to play it.
Yeah.
And this, unfortunately, is not.
It does feel a lot more restrictive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like there is a way to do this, and it's very much an encounter-based game. It's like you get an encounter followed by another encounter followed by another encounter, and you're kind of going from like down alleys between streets to get to each one. And it's almost as if every encounter has a very specific way they want you to get through it. And that's a little bit unfortunate because that's not what I was expecting based on the videos that I saw leading up to it. It's not bad. It's still, you still get that satisfaction of, I've solved the encounter puzzle.
Yeah.
And as I said, the setting is good and the ambience is nice. And the stealth like mechanics are pretty good, especially because you start off with an ability that I think you would have unlocked by now, which is the you basically hold a button and turn invisible for a brief amount of time. Quite
handy. As long as you've definitely got it on that ability when you need it.
Yeah, and switching between abilities is relatively straightforward once you get a couple more. But yeah, it seems good. There's a whole ability tree that I just got to that I've managed to put a point into that effectively gives me the ability to talk to NPCs, and it gives me an increased chance of threatening them and getting a positive result out of it. Which,
right. I picked intimidation as one of my first things. Basically, the first thing I upgraded, I think, was intimidation. But yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's I'm liking what I'm playing so far, but it is definitely not the game that is being advertised, which I think is a little bit unfortunate. It's not up to the levels of what I think they're advertising anyway, my perception of it.
Yeah, I think you being a massive fan of Dishonored and you know everything that game can do, this is going to feel like a stripped down version of that at best. And like you say, like I do think its budget shows in places. It kind of shows that it's not necessarily a full price game. I don't know about you as well. I've had some technical issues. Like I tried to start playing the game from a seated position, and I don't know if you've tried that, but I found it really struggled in that. Like it was really a bit buggy. Like it can be a little bit when you're stood up, like when you're getting behind someone and you grab them, because you just have to move your face close to their neck.
That has been really inconsistent.
Sucking them. Yeah, and that just seems oddly at times. It's like I grab them here, I pull that there, and all of a sudden they pop out and then shoot me. And that's okay if it's the first person in an encounter, but if it's the like 12th person and you've taken all the other people out successfully up to that point, it feels a bit unfair kind of thing.
So just to explain that a bit better to the people at home.
Yeah.
You basically have two ways, at least at the start of the game, to take down an enemy, which is you either use the blink assassination, which is you use your blink ability to teleport on them and it'll give you a kind of visual signal to say you're going to actually take this person out as part of this action. But once you do that, you can't feed on the person, and it costs a pretty severe amount of the resource that you have, which is effectively how hungry you are. So you can't do it over and over again. The other more consistent way to do it is to sneak up behind someone, stand up, put both of your hands in front of you, grab them by the shoulders very accurately, pull them towards you, and then move your head into a position that would bite their neck on either side. And then you hold on to them until you get to until they either run out of blood or you can release just before that to get like an extra boost in the amount of blood that you receive for, I'm assuming, not biological reasons.
I like to think it's because you do it just before their heart stops. So their heart's still pumping blood into you if you let go. If you go for too long,
there you go.
You stop their heart, see?
Medicine with tin. Yeah, so that's the two ways to take someone down. And that latter way, which is it is the fact that you've got to sneak up behind them, stand up, which is not a simple case of, like, there are games like, I think Skyrim even did this in VR, where if you just crouch down in room space, then you act as crouched in the game as well. Yeah. Whereas this doesn't. You actively have to click the stick, which is a weird sensation to be stood up and crouched. Yeah. So I've been kind of mimicking where I am. But the problem is that because the camera moves down when you use the crouch button, if you then crouch as well, then you're like basically on the ground.
In the floor. Yeah.
It's very strange. So that's one thing that's a little bit annoying. You sneak up behind them, you stand up, you grab their shoulders, but you don't always hit. And if you only get them with one hand, then they freak out.
and then often turn around and shoot you in the face.
Exactly, yeah. So that's not been especially great. If you can get it, you then get on their neck and sink in. But obviously,
it's good when it works. It's just it feels weird that it doesn't work consistently all the time.
There's a main mechanic of the game. Problem. Yeah, exactly. So the other option, of course, is if you have no reason to take that person down, leave them standing and sneak around them. But that would be a lot easier if you were able to blink to places that weren't necessarily labeled in the engine as, yes, you can blink to this place.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The other thing
I feel like we're quite negative about this so far, but there is a fun experience to be had here, and I do not regret spending the, was it £20 to buy it?
Yeah, and I think this was on sale if you pre-ordered it, so it was £25 without the discount, but I think it was a £2.50 discount
otherwise
for pre-ordering basically. And I'm pleased with what I've got. I've had one major hard crash where it actually where picking up one of Pietro's collectibles just made the game crash for some reason. I have no idea why. Those odd little technical things aside, and also I think particularly in the level I'm in at the moment, the pathfinding isn't always obvious and sometimes feels like, oh, I just didn't see that thing on the side of the wall and I spent 10 minutes looking around this level to try and find a way out type of thing.
They do give you a button for that, which is the left trigger that you can hold your hand in front of you, and it gives you literally arrows to tell you where you're supposed to go.
But again, I don't know if this is just a more recent thing on PSVR 2 since the patch that came out on day one, because I didn't hear any reviewers talking about this and I haven't heard people talking about it in general, but that is again something that it consistently doesn't work with me. Like, it's supposed to detect heartbeats and you can do it in the environment.
Yeah.
And I would say 50% of the time it works and another 50% of the time it just doesn't. And it just doesn't show me that someone's waiting around the corner for me or something else going on. And I don't know what's going on with that. I'm hoping that's something that can be patched out. But as you said, there's a few negatives to this, but it sounds like we're being negative on the game. But overall, I think it's a really fun, enjoyable experience. When it works really well. The addition of having the kind of wrist-mounted mini crossbow thing that's on your wrist, and the different darts that you can make with that works really well, I think. That's one thing that does work really well. The target on that's really good. You can hit targets from quite far. You can force people into sleep, so you can sneak up behind them with like sleeping darts. And yeah, that's one element that I think is a really good addition to the game and works really well.
Yeah.
And feels like that in conjunction with your powers kind of makes it so that you're empowered to do that. Again, it's not something where you can just go willy-nilly and just go firing off darts on everyone, because those darts do use up some hunger to create them. And doing that. One other thing we haven't mentioned, though, you can feed off people, but you can also feed off rats in the environment as well. So the main level and the main area, the place that you're going through all the time is Venice, and it kind of Venice streets or the sewers underground, basically. But both are generally filled with rats, and they kind of offer themselves up to yourself. So you just pick them up off the floor and munch on them to satisfy some of your hunger as well, basically. So even if you're at a point in time where you don't have any weaponry available and haven't got things done, you can feed off them to kind of then empower you to go and deal with the next enemy and stuff a bit better as well, basically. So, as I said, there's a couple of technical issues which I'm hoping get patched out. There's a few limitations to the game in general, but when the game was only £20-25 to start with, I think they're more than forgivable. And the enjoyment that I get from the game and where I see the rest of it heading, I'm like, you can tell this is a good quality, well-made game made by people that are experienced in VR, because you mentioned they made Wraith, but they also made Apex Construct, which was wildly regarded in previous headsets. I don't think that's out on PSVR 2 yet. I assume it's still out on Quest and you can get it for Quest 3, but I don't know if it's been updated for Quest 3 yet. No.
I doubt it ever will be.
No. But as I said, they make good games. They've made another good game here, I think, Fast Travel Games. So, albeit with a few caveats of a few problems here and there, I think it's a good game, basically.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely worth the money they're asking for.
Yeah.
I can't get over this speed bump. I just wish someone would give a studio a crap load of money and a crap load of experience to make a decent World of Darkness setting game. It's just driving me up the wall after years of not getting one. Bloodlines 2, I haven't got any faith whatsoever.
I would say this could have almost taken any vampire license. It could have been Interview with a
100%.
Vampire.
Yeah.
It could have been anything else, and it wouldn't have made too much difference to the game, I don't think. But I think it helps to have a wider world, as I said, that it's saying it in, basically. But
Yeah, agreed. I didn't know, as I said, I didn't notice any difference with that on the MetaQuest 3. I don't know if they intend to update it or not. Probably not would be my guess. But we'll see. There's not many games that have, to be honest. So moving on, we have just mentioned how I got a Quest 3. And I've been in Quest 2 land for a few years now. I think I got one in 2020, maybe 2 years, which has served me really well. But it was always a little bit irritating that the benefits were it didn't have cables.
Yeah.
Unless I absolutely wanted to plug it into my PC. The drawback was it was not up to the quality of the original Oculus Oculus Rift that I owned, which I still have in a box down to the side of me here. This is this is how much came with the original Oculus Rift. It came in this box, which has the headset, controllers, and because I bought an extra one, 3 of the kind of sensor units that you would put around your room, so you could get full 360 room tracking. This one is the new beast that I bought today, and is fancy. I love this thing so far. As I said, the downside of the Quest 2 was the resolution and just the general quality of the picture was not quite where the Rift was at. You let it slide because it was a lot cheaper, and also you didn't have a wire sticking out you all the time. But this is really the best of both worlds. This is equal to, if not superior to, the Rift display. Not quite as high a frame rate, but I don't really get motion sick, so that's not a massive issue. The pancake lenses are brilliant. Obviously, if you're listening, you won't see this, but you can get the kind of video feed working. So the pancake lenses are great. The distance between the lens and the actual front of the headset is probably about just over an inch. So it no longer feels like I've got a great big bleeding weight on my face when I'm doing stuff like walkabout mini golf, for example. So every time I used to play walkout mini golf, you've got to put your head down to look at the floor, and it just feels like there's a hoofing great weight on the front of your head. This is way better for it. The straps, fine. I'll probably get a decent, one of the decent Elite straps at some point.
A lot of people I know have upgraded to the Elite head strap just because that first one isn't great. Apparently,
and you probably want to get the one with the battery pack built in as well.
That's another thing as well.
Because the battery life on this, I haven't obviously used it through to completion yet, but I've heard it's about 3 or 4 hours, which is probably 2 decent sessions. It's not the end of the world, but you might as well get the battery pack one if you're going to do it at all. The pass through on this is what is really worth talking about, which is phenomenal. Like full color display. I had it on my head earlier with AR stuff going on. Over to the one side, I had a TV on. I was sitting in bed, back up against the headboard. TV on the wall opposite me, watching TV and doing stuff to the side of the TV with the AR functionality, the mixed reality stuff, and it was perfect. Obviously, it's a little bit squidgy. It's not like you're looking directly through your eyes because it is coming through cameras, and occasionally, if you wave your hand in front of it, it all goes like Twilight Zone for a minute. But yeah, it's a really good quality cam. I'm genuinely really impressed with that. And obviously, as with the Quest 2, you can just sort of double tap the side of the headset, and it switches between full VR and mixed reality. So if you ever if your wife, for example, ever walks into the room and you go like, "Hello." Oh, all right, nice to see you. I'm going back to my golf, and then back into golf mode. So yeah, it's really cool so far. I got the 128 gig version, which obviously there's a 128 and a 512. They just didn't have a 512 available today, so I didn't even think about it. It's quite a lot more expensive though, and the games that I've got several games on this at the moment, a few of which I regularly play, and it's not even half full. So
that's good.
My experience is that VR games aren't really that big, so I'm pretty sure 128 gigs is going to do me fine. Yeah, but any questions?
As I said, I think it's a good advert for the product and the Quest 3 that I think all of my friends that had a Quest 2 have upgraded to a Quest 3 now. You were the last one, I think, basically. I know Dan. Dan has a Quest 2 and hasn't upgraded to a Quest 3.
He doesn't want another VR headset.
Yes.
He genuinely gets ill.
Which is really weird because he was the one that really wanted augmented reality and mixed reality, and now that that's an actual thing on Quest 3, he's doesn't care so much apparently. But from what I hear, like most of the mixed reality and augmented reality stuff is a bit gimmicky so far. It feels like it's a bit like, oh, we've added this one little thing that like is just a mixed reality thing on top of what we were doing. But that's something where I think that will mature as you know, people learn how to program in that, and as successes are made in that, other people will build on those successes.
Angry Birds is fun. So they released this Angry Birds game, I think, alongside the Quest 3, so about a month ago. It was on the subscription this month as a free game. And you can play it in full VR where you're just at a beach. For some reason, you're on a beach and you can play Angry Birds. You've got a catapult and you fire them at things.
Yep.
But you can also flip it into mixed reality mode, where it just sets up somewhere in your room and then you play Angry Birds in your room, which honestly, it looks great. So
yeah,
I think the mixed reality stuff will come. There seems to be a lot of investment in the platform as a whole at the moment, which I'm happy to see. There's some good stuff coming out of that. Obviously, we will see what Asgard's Wrath 2 looks like in 6 weeks. So, yeah, fingers crossed they keep supporting the platform. But, you know, I'm hopeful because there's some good stuff on there right now that looks good.
I know this tends to be the way when, you know, a launch has just come about, but it does seem that Meta is putting a lot of investment into software development and getting more games on there and getting exclusives on there, like Assassin's Creed
Nexus.
and Assassin's Creed Nexus and a few other things where it seems to be. I mean, there were rumors that Meta were paying developers to just come across. I'm not necessarily thinking that they're paying them to put that. They might be giving them good advertising deals and good things if you're just on Quest, basically. And I think they might also be just encouraging people to go Quest first, simply because the numbers are there on the platform at the moment, basically.
That's true.
Especially without having to necessarily upgrade, that the fact that you can target Quest 3 and Quest 2 audiences with pretty much the same bit of software does mean that they've got a much bigger install base. And I think it means that most developers will be going to Quest first, basically.
Let's not forget they own a lot of first-party studios now as well.
Yes,
like a few years ago they went really ham and bought a lot of VR startups. So they've got a lot of in-house people building stuff for them. So yeah, I think it's a good move. Like there's a lot of, as you say, install base there. Probably, well, definitely more than the PSVR 2. And with Sony being kind of half-arsed about their role in what that headset's going to become, I think it's probably a good thing to see this getting a bit more traction.
They mentioned recently, I can't remember, it was one of their executives who was being interviewed, but he said something about it not being their focus this year. And I'm like, what? It's the year of a release. It's the year when you've got one of your main competitors coming out. It really should be your focus this year, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, just because you've got a PlayStation Portable that's going to fall flat on its face, or, well, maybe not. That might actually be more successful than it deserves. But yeah, it does feel like there's not a lot of love for PSVR 2 from PlayStation. And I wish they'd do a slightly better job of it. But Meta does seem to be doing a good job. And at the moment, I'm more tempted to pick up a Quest 3 than I would wager you are to pick up a PSVR 2.
I've got zero interest.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember I was writing at the start of 2023, I was writing a list of expensive things I might buy in 2023. I do this every year. And one of the things was a PSVR 2, but in brackets, and I could probably pull the file up now, but I'm not going to. In brackets, it said, but only if Horizon Call of the Mountain is good. Or great, rather. And it turned out to be a perfectly serviceable tech demo, effectively. Which I'm not going to spend 500 quid in a headset for.
I played the demo. I haven't even bought the full game of that. I think Gran Turismo is a much bigger selling point than Call of the Mountain, basically.
I would probably agree, yeah.
And that is fantastic. I'm not going to say it isn't. But Sony really haven't done enough to put more hybrid games and more first party to support for stuff. And I don't know. Well, it's not even that like they're not doing that. It's they're not even talking about doing it. Like, I don't know what's going on with half of the studios that made games for PSVR 1. Like, I don't know what they're doing. And I'm not even sure that they know what they're doing is the biggest problem there, I think. But yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, a couple of other games that I previewed, if I can go back to that and talk about them. Some of which are also coming to Quest, so you might be more interested as well, Kev. One that I got to play, a few that I got to play at EGX, which I haven't spoken about yet because I've kept them from the main show. But things worth talking about, I got to play Tin Hearts VR. There's a demo coming out for this on the 9th of November for PSVR 2. I don't know if there's a demo coming to Quest as well, but it's very much, everyone talks about it as a Lemmings-like style game where there's a bunch of toy soldiers that are basically making their way through the environment, and you need to help and guide them through that environment by redirecting them by placing blocks that they bounce off, or redirecting how they bounce off drums to kind of bounce across the room and going in other places and like that. And it's a kind of, you are not so as much, I guess it's pathfinding, but it's a puzzle-solving, pathfinding thing that you're doing for the little tin soldiers in the environment. It did come out previously on flat screen, but this is the VR version that they demoed at EGX on PSVR 2. I had to say, it's a game that I would be semi-interested in flat screen, but I kept from playing or buying it because I was interested in the VR version, and I think that is a good decision. From what I played of this, I much preferred this to Humanity, which is probably the most comparable thing that's come out on PSVR 2 recently. I didn't get on with Humanity at all. It got very highly spoken of, and I just didn't like it. Whereas Tin Hearts, I immediately liked. I really liked the puzzles, and I really want to see and play the full game in VR, basically. So, yeah, that's one where the demo sold me on something that I thought would be good in VR, but I can report back and say, yeah, I had fun with this. Definitely look out for the demo and definitely try it for yourselves when it comes out 9th of November if you're a fellow PSVR 2 gamer. Hopefully that will also come to other platforms as well, because I think that's a good VR game as well. But yeah, Tin Hearts VR. I also got to play, and this was showed on Quest 2. I said I get to play, but it's part play, part observe, basically. And I think this had, I couldn't find a mention of this online, but I think they said it had something to do with the National Film School as well, basically. But it's developed by a little company called Jante Interactive. They're currently looking for publishers and developers, and this was something that they were showing off at the show with a view to finding a publisher or a developer so they can flesh it out into a full idea. But it's a game called, or an experience called Tea is Served. And basically, you're the guest of Dracula being invited to this dinner party, although you're possibly more food than you are guest, basically, especially as your viewpoint is from the middle of the table and you're surrounded by a selection of creatures of the night, Dracula being one of them, I think the Loch Ness Monster being another one, and a guy called Brian, who, despite early impressions, may be the most sinister of the lot, basically. But you're tasked with kind of making sure they get a meal in the form that they want, or tea served in the way that they want. And you're, serving up various different meals to them, or just making sure that things are served in a certain way. Some of that may be serving up some of yourself so that it can be consumed. And I won't say much more than that, because it's kind of a story-based experience. And it's one of those things where you're like, oh, cool, they did that. And yeah, some of the characters interact with each other in such ways that, okay, so I've fed that person now, but that means that the next time I go to do a task for that person, that may not be possible. So yeah, like, it was a fun little experience. It was quite silly and a bit different. But I'd really like to see exactly what they do with this idea if it's fleshed out to a whole kind of, experience or game, or however they end up framing it. But yeah, it was fun. It was good humoured. It has a really kind of nice and different art style that is kind of cutesy, but also sinister at the same time, in a sort of Tim Burton-esque kind of style. And yeah, I really quite liked it. It was really enjoyable. Definitely one to look out for. One that I'm hopeful that, as I said, they'll get a publisher or developer to jump on board this and make it into a full experience. But yeah, it's something I'll definitely be keeping an eye on going forward because it was interesting at least. One other game I tried, and this was something entirely a bit different and an entire headset that I'd never tried before. So I was playing on PICO 4, which is one of the few VR headsets I hadn't had any experience with before, as a game called Blitz Rhythm, which I have to say very much felt like a slightly, and it's a slightly backhanded compliment, but a slightly poor man's version of, what's the big rhythm game that I'm forgetting the name of? Beat Saber. Yes, very much felt like Beat Saber. The one unique selling point to both this game and the PICO 4 in general is that this included the PICO motion trackers. So this actually had 2 straps that were strapped around your legs that had little motion sensors on them. And so that it could actually detect when you were lifting up and placing down your feet, as well as being able to wave your arms about like you do in Beat Saber as well.
This video looks mad.
Yes. It is not easy. I was quite pleased that I managed to get a B rating in this song, which seemed okay related to the other people that did things. But yeah, like I'm not the biggest rhythm gamer at all, and it did feel a bit like, tapping your head and rubbing your stomach at the same time type of thing.
Yeah.
But in a good fun way. Like I quite liked it. Like it felt like there was, a bit more going on than there normally is in a Beat Saber game because you're involving both your feet, basically. And they had, kind of tiles that are coming towards you on the ground as opposed to the blocks that were in the air that you kind of cut through. You're just kind of stomping your feet or treading in one place to kind of, just to trigger the different blocks. But yeah, I can really see how that would be fun. I can see how the motion trackers will be good for fitness games, maybe even good for a football game possibly. And it will do a few things that you just can't do with, I say traditional, but, with other VR headsets that don't have this capability. This is something that adds to it. But I also just thought that the PICO 4 was quite a nice headset. Like, it very much felt like a Quest 2, I think. But price-wise, it's priced reasonably in comparison. But one of the main things for me is it felt really nice and light as well. And like you're saying about that, the Quest 3 being that sort of pancake lenses and flat to your face and a light kind of thing, this felt really light as well. It felt, really good in that respect.
It's really important.
Obviously it doesn't have the visual fidelity of the PSVR 2 or maybe the Quest 3 now as well. And I don't know where they're going to go with that in terms of updating this headset. But as just a trying out as a headset and trying out the game, I was impressed with the accuracy of the motion trackers and I was impressed with the headset itself. Obviously that comes with the caveat that, as we said, Meta are investing a lot of time, effort and money into developing a lot of software. And PICO 4 might not have that available to it. But there might be some things where, especially if you're going for fitness-style games, where the motion tracker actually makes it that it's more appealing to some people than the Quest, possibly.
Cool. So some good previews there. Was EGX good in general?
We spoke about this on the show with Coleman and stuff. It wasn't that it was bad. It's just, it's not what it has been in previous years, and it's hard to not compare them to previous years. And it just feels weird when you're not having the major platform holders of Xbox and PlayStation being there, and Nintendo are only there showing off one game, and it all feels a bit reductive, like there isn't the Ubisoft presence that there used to be. As I said, I don't understand why PlayStation aren't at these events really pushing PSVR 2. Other than the games I spoke about, there was our good friends from C-Smash VRS showing off their game again. And, they had a couple of setups there and they were doing their best to show it off. But as I said in my article that was up on Big Red Barrel, Sony should be doing a lot more to help sell their headsets rather than relying on software developers to show off and sell their headsets, basically. Like, it just feels like, they're not quite doing enough, and not being at these type of events just doesn't make any sense to me, basically.
Okay, so we've got some upcoming games that are on our radar that we will probably have some more news on by the time we record our next episode. So among those are Stride, Fates, which comes out on November 9th on the Quest platform. There's a paid standalone sequel and a 5 to 8 hour campaign. Looks very acrobatic and motion sickness inducing for those that suffer from such things. Is this the one that's from the... Oh God, I can't remember the name now. Sinkaito? No. Sirento VR people.
No, that was the one that we spoke about earlier in the show, which was... I keep on going to say Asgard's Wrath when it isn't. Hellsweeper VR, basically. That was the one that was really disappointingly soft. Hopefully going to get patched. This one, I just thought, this is a game that I thought might be of interest to you, Kev, but mainly because I'm really jealous that it hasn't yet been announced for PSVR 2. It's very much a slightly violent Mirror's Edge, which I'm very much on board with as a lover of Mirror's Edge. And I like the look of this. I think the original Stride came to PSVR 1 in the end, but a bit after I was sort of really active with the headset, so I didn't end up picking it up. But I'm really interested to see if this one comes across to PSVR 2, because I'd definitely be interested if it was. If not, I was guessing that you might be interested in it, hence the fact I was highlighting it for you as much as our audience, basically.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've seen video of this before, but that does look pretty interesting. I will definitely keep an eye on it. And it's November 9th, so that's... Yeah. I mean, at the time we're recording this, 4 days' time.
Yep.
So yeah, I'll keep an eye out for that. Also coming up in November is Assassin's Creed Nexus, which again is a Quest exclusive. Still no word of PSVR 2 for that, is there?
No, but I did speak to someone from Ubisoft that hinted that may be a matter of time, and this being a timed exclusive for some time. And it sounded like they weren't willing to publicly state exactly what was going on with it yet, but that this might be coming to PSVR 2. I'm very hopeful that it is, because this looks good.
Well, I'm a bit concerned about what I've seen of it so far, because every video I've seen looks like there's one of two things going on. Either this is pre-rendered video made to look like someone's playing, or someone is playing and the game plays like a pre-rendered video. So I'm not sure which of those two is the truth at the moment. Probably the latter. But I'll be very interested to... I'm not going to touch this one with a barge pole until I see what the reviews come in like. Specifically, not necessarily from outlets like your IGNs and GameSpots, because that's not really where you go to get your VR opinions. But I'll see what Upload VR have to say about this, for example.
Yeah.
Because if it passes grade with them, then I'll be a bit more interested. So definitely not day one for me, but we'll see what the reviews look like.
Yeah, and hopeful, I haven't asked them yet, but I'm hopeful we might get someone from Upload VR on the podcast at some point in the future as well. So that might be good if we do. But yeah, like as I said, this is one I'm keeping an eye on. I'm hopeful that it comes good. I'm just glad that Ubisoft are actually still developing for VR, because they seem to have backed away from it a bit. And they had a few good things on PSVR 1 and nothing announced yet for PSVR 2. So I'm hopeful that this lands well and can help gets them to do so, basically.
A new platform came out. You can always bank on Ubisoft to be there, right?
Not on PSVR 2, though, apparently.
Did they not release anything for that at all?
Nothing.
Wow. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's not good.
I think we are counting that this is the start of the secret behind-the-scenes countdown of Tim buying a Quest 3.
It may happen.
But speaking of PSVR 2, you're not barren of games over there, because there is a game called Tiger Blade coming out on November 17th, which I'm told by our show notes here is influenced by Korean neo-noir cinema, which is a very specific reference.
That is quite specific, but it looks fun. It looks silly. It's one that Sony have actually been bigging up. Like, they announced this via their blog, I think, originally, but there's been like bits of this on some of their highlight videos and stuff like that. I'm hopeful that this one lands because it looks good. I will point out that there's quite a few games coming out, especially for Quest in November. I've just highlighted some of the ones that I thought would be of most interest to you and I, and therefore of larger interest to our audience as well, basically.
Agreed, yeah.
But yeah, there's some good games coming out. This is one that I'm unsure about at the moment, but I'm really hoping hits well. It looks silly. Basically, that the Tiger Blade thing hints at that I think you're in sort of some sort of Korean underworld type thing in the future, but you're tasked, or at some point you have to interact with a mysterious package which turns to be out to be the last tiger cub in the world, basically. And I think that's the kind of premise and setup. As I said, looks interesting. I'm not entirely sure what neo-noir cinema is in Korean style, but yeah, I'm down. I'm hopeful that this will come out good, especially as it's one of the few PlayStation VR 2 exclusives that's coming out this month. So yeah, one I'm going to be keeping an eye on.
And then there's also Breaches on PSVR 2, which is a 5v5 multiplayer game in the vein of Rainbow Six Siege.
Yes. Now, this one I will be more interested in, Kev, if you're interested in. That's part of the reason that I've put this on the list, because I don't know if crossplay is definitely coming at launch, but this is already out on Quest, is already out on PC VR and stuff as well. And I think it's crossplay there. So I'm guessing will hopefully be crossplay. And if so, then I'm more interested in picking it up if I can possibly play some with you.
I am opening my app right now to see what the secret with this is, because I've got to admit, I've never even heard of it.
It's really highly rated on Steam. I think it's got 9 out of 10, and generally rated as a good, fun multiplayer shooter on VR formats and stuff. It's first time it's coming to PlayStation VR later this month. They haven't said when, but sometime in November, apparently, basically.
Right. So this has got a 4.7 out of 5 average rating with nearly 3,000 ratings, and has an editor's choice badge on it. I can tell you exactly what I don't recognise this game. It's because I actually do. Now that I've seen the picture on the screen, I do recognise it, and it is such a generic name with such a generic picture. I always see it on the front page and just completely skip past it.
Fair enough.
My bad on that one, I suppose.
No, but as I said, it's highly rated, but I am more interested if I can play with you. I'm not sure some of my other friends that are into VR are going to be so interested in this one. And
I mean, I don't typically roll down the multiplayer route for any game, especially if it's PvP. But if it comes onto the Quest Plus subscription, which is my answer for a lot these days, okay. I'm not going to spend over 20 quid on it, is the short answer.
Fine. So I might put that on the back burner. Just, consider it. If you pick it up, I will pick it up. Put it that way.
Sure, yeah. So also, the last one is that Asgard's, we've already mentioned quickly that Asgard's Wrath 2 is coming out on December 15th on the Quest. I got this for free, say for free, as part of my £480 purchase that I made today for the Quest 3. So that looks really, really good. I quite enjoyed the first one. It was not a fantastic experience, but it was decent. I played it. I think it didn't help that I played it right after I finished Half-Life Alyx, and I was in the mood for more AAA looking games, and they were in short supply in 2020. So I played it right after, and it's just like it's fine, but it's not on the same level as it. But which was fine at the time. But this one looks like they're actually stepping it up a bit from the first game.
Early previews do talk very highly about this. And this is one of the games that I'm a bit jealous on, because this is never going to come to PSVR 2. And I do want more games like this where it's a good 60-hour epic. The only thing is, this 60 hours and your battery lasts for 3 hours.
Well, let me put it this way, right? I've put 200 plus hours into Baldur's Gate 3, and I didn't do it all in one go.
What? No.
So, and with the VR, so I don't know about you, but my lengthiest VR session, even when I was playing Alex, which is probably the longest amount of time I've spent in a single session, maybe 2 hours, and then I get sick of having a box on my face.
Yeah, but see, that for me is why I've always argued that as much as games like Skyrim did actually prove me slightly wrong in this, because it was a game that was a massive game that I was happy to play for a number of hours, I do think that VR is better suited to small, intense arcade experiences.
I always agree with you on that, yeah.
So I'm not, as much as I'd like this game and like access to this game, I'm not sure this is like the best foot forward for VR. Basically, I think
it comes down to how it plays. Like, if it is a segmented thing where, I don't want to say encounters because it's not always going to be an encounter, but if each gameplay scenario is 20, 30 minutes, and you can save and checkpoint throughout, and that moves on to another one and another one, in the same way that Half-Life Alyx was very level based.
Yeah.
That would be fine with me. I can put a lot of time into that kind of game. But yeah, if they're just trying to bring over a large scale RPG, a la, the latest lot of Assassin's Creed games, minus Mirage, obviously.
Yeah.
That is not a good transition into VR. It's just not a good fit. But I don't think they will do it that way, but time will tell.
Fair enough. One other thing which I'll mention very quickly is just that Vertigo 2 was delayed for PSVR 2, slightly indefinitely, although they still think it's coming out this year. But that's one that I was really looking forward to. I don't know if you've seen, but this is one of the highest rated VR games out there, I think, basically. I would recommend you picking this up while you have your Quest 3. I think this is one that you will like a lot. I'm jealous of the fact that you'll get to play it now. There's a big update that was coming at the same launch with the PSVR 2 with more characters and other things going on that added some more kind of endgame content. And I don't know if that has also been delayed with the delay of the PSVR 2 version. But yeah, it's definitely one that I'll recommend to you, Kev. I think that's one that you'll enjoy playing on your new headset, basically.
Once again, got the phone out. Vertigo is again another one that I've not heard of.
Yeah.
Vertigo. Oh, so it's not. Okay, so this isn't on Quest.
Oh, is it not? Oh, is it just on PC VR at the moment?
It must be a PC game. Which means that the sort of lines that were coming up in the video there would make a bit of sense, where it says the best PC VR game since Half-Life Alyx.
Right.
Yeah, so I can probably have a look into that. I would imagine it's on Steam.
Yeah, so you can probably play it with Steam Link and stuff, basically. No?
Vertigo 2, 25 quid. There's a Vertigo remastered as well.
Yes.
Let's have a look what we've got here. So this is overwhelmingly positive, which is always a good look. And there's a demo. So there we go.
Play the demo.
I am happy to play a demo. I'm going to hit download on that as soon as we're finished with this recording. That's pretty good. Okay, so I'll play the demo and see what I feel. And this is, I mean, if that's an overwhelmingly positive response to that, then yeah, I'm happy to give that a crack. Cool. Definitely. Okay, so I think we can draw this week to a close there. This episode. So, yes. I have been Kev. I
might have been Tim.
And once again, we need a new sign-off because we just keep copying BRB UK's.
Yes. We'll have to come up with a new virtual sign. Let's get some audience participation in that. Let's see what they can come up with for us, and then we'll workshop some stuff and see what works out. But yeah,
100%.
Go from there.
Yeah, we'll have a lot of new stuff to talk about on the next episode. Obviously, I've got the Quest 3 now, so I'll be getting a bit more involved with what's available in there. I'm probably picking up some of my PC VR games that I've not been playing because the Quest 2 just wasn't good enough to display them. So yeah, cool. Until next time, we will see you later.
Ears are quite welcome for the podcasting goodness that you just heard. Why not roll on over to BigRedBarrel.com for more podcasts, news, reviews, and videos from the biggest, reddest site on the internet, BigRedBarrel.com.
Anyway, we should get on with our agenda here because we've got some stuff to talk about, and we want to get through some of this because we don't want a 3-hour podcast, which is always a risk when Tim and I get to chatting. So let's.